everyone, all our participants. We're joined here today by architect Shivani Shah, and welcome first of all to the eYIC Innovation Challenge. And we see this as the start of a beautiful relationship between the participants and the cohort that has helped organize this event. And to just help you break into the talk and about inclusive cities and how we can come up with solutions for inclusive cities, we have taken the effort to arrange a few talks which can help you speed your processes and ideas. This is one of the three talks that we have arranged for you this month. The first talk is by architect Shivani Shah, and I'm just going to give you a brief background about Shivani to begin with. So Shivani is an architect, built environment Anand Fellow, and the co-founder and CEO at Accessible Designs LLP, which is an early stage startup founded just recently in June 22, alongside her grandfather. And they're on a mission to make the world a more accessible and inclusive place for all. So Shivani realized this need right from her architecture studies. Her research work explores autobiographical accounts of persons on the spectrum of autism. She's also decoding the understanding of space itself, and her research has been published by the Design for All Institute India. She's also tried to gauge sensory design parameters which she developed for children with autism, an abstract of which was selected for Environmental Design Research Association's publication. And recently, her work with a leading museum in Bengaluru also got her selected at Include 22, which is an inclusive design conference organized by the Helen Hammond Center for Design, the Royal College of Arts, London. She also worked as a toilet fellow at the International Toilet Festival, Chennai, which looked at the issues of WASH and its interrelations with caste, gender, and disability. Shivani, with her grandfather, Mr. Ramesh Shah, who's 87 right now and has limited mobility, they're working on Accessible Designs LLP to revolutionize the unreliable and inadequate built environment information system, reducing the accessible and also which reduces the accessibility to information barriers. And within 3 months of incorporation, Accessible Design LLP won the Smart Solutions Challenge and Inclusive Cities Award 2022 in the ideation category organized by the National Institute of Urban Affairs and the United Nations in India. A company aims to empower persons with disabilities and the elderly by giving them the right to infrastructural information and enabling independent and informed decision making. So for the young students cohort that we have here today, all said and done, Shivani here is going to describe to you how her journey began and how her process began. It's not our intentions to overwhelm you with too much detailed and complicated information right from the get-go. That will be gradually given to you and you'll be empowered to understand how to develop an idea and solution. Shivani here today will talk to you about how her journey began, what was her process like. And before I hand over the floor to her, I wish all the participants all the best as they take on this very unique and important challenge. And yeah, the floor is yours, Shivani. You may begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh, for such an elaborate introduction. Hi, everyone. I am Shivani, and you've already heard a little bit from the introduction. I am the co-founder and CEO at Accessible. And like Rajesh said, we are a early stage startup. We have recently been incorporated. And so before I start talking about my journey, first I would like to thank eYIC, IIT Bombay, and Ministry of Education for doing competitions such as this, and also for having me over here. So I am quite excited because the challenge for this year's eYIC competition, the theme that you are all going to explore in this competition is urban inclusivity. And you're going to see it through the lens of a person with disability. So that entire thing is very exciting to me. And Accessible, as you heard, Accessible also works for persons with disability. We have a vision to make India accessible. And it's going to be quite a good interaction between us as we try to understand how did I start and what all happened in the journey. So as you heard, we are not a very established startup. We are a very early stage startup. So today, my talk or my conversation with all of you is not really going to be about success stories that I want to share. I'm also not going to talk about the tips that I can give you for this competition or suggest you ideas that you can work for this competition. All of those things I think you can and you will be figuring out as you will move ahead in this journey with this competition. But what I really want to talk to you about today are four very simple things. Four very simple things that became very fundamental in deciding my journey and which paved my path forward. So, before we even talk about anything, I see a lot of people are here, but everyone's cameras are off. And I want this to be not a one-sided, 1 hour boring conversation. It would really help if you guys can switch on your cameras, be visible over here so that I know we all are together having a conversation and trying to understand what would it be like to be a part of such a competition. I can see two cameras are on, but I am hoping for more people to switch on their cameras because otherwise it'll be more like I'm talking about my journey to myself, which is not very interesting. So, okay, all right. I hope as you get more comfortable, you will switch on your camera at some point and we can have a one-to-one interaction. So yeah, so let's begin. So I was telling you that I'm going to talk to you about the four very simple things which became very fundamental in my journey. So before we start any journey, any problem solving, any entry in the competition, the first thing that we talk about, the first thing in the theory of change, the first thing that everyone wants you to figure out and decode as accurately as possible, as precisely as possible, as simply as possible, the first thing is the problem statement. And I'm not sure how many of you already have a problem statement in this competition or have you ever worked with problem statements before. But if you don't have it, eventually everyone's going to push you to find a problem statement to work on. So what is a problem statement? A problem statement emphasizes on the issues that you want to solve. It emphasizes on the what of the whole journey. What are you going to do in this whole process? What is the problem that you want to solve? And while the what has been given a lot of importance, and indeed it is important, but from my experience, I can tell you that in this entire startup journey of what, who, when, how that you're trying to learn, the most important question is not what, but it is the why. And that brings me to the first thing that I want to talk to you about, which is why is the why so important? I want you to share the slide so that, yeah. So, yeah. So everyone pushes to talk about the what so much, but let's talk about the first thing even before you go to the what, which is why is the why so important? So let me tell you a story. Back in 2019, when I was in my, yeah, go slide forward. Okay, anyway. So let me tell you a story. Back in 2019, when I was in my final year of architecture, in the final year of architecture, we have to do a project, like a thesis. It could be a design thesis or a research thesis or a documentation thesis. A thesis in the subject of our liking, a thesis in the subject that we want to explore further in our career ahead after architecture. So by that time, by the fifth year of my architecture, I had developed a huge inclination and curiosity for psychology and human environment relationships. So I wanted to understand from my thesis how can built environments can be really designed for children with autism. Now, for those of you who don't know what autism is a different way of processing the world around you. But if I speak medically, autism is a neurological condition which has a lot of issues which trouble the one who has autism. This is how the medical definition of autism defines autism. So you have issues with communication, you have issues in language, you have issues in day-to-day functioning, you have issues in intellectual abilities and learning abilities. Basically, autism is a kind of disability which affects your everyday life. So I was determined to do a thesis on autism, and like you were doing a challenge which requires you to understand persons with disabilities, I was also very determined to do a thesis on this particular topic. So like any other student will do a project, I also had to do some case studies. So for my first case study, you can shift the slide. So for my first case study, I went to Action for Autism. Action for Autism is a school in New Delhi. You can shift the slide. You can change the slide. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I went to Delhi. I was in Gujarat. I was studying in Baroda. My architecture studies were there. So I went to Action for Autism. It is one of the pioneering schools in autism studies in India. So I went there. I stayed there for a couple of days, and I interacted with people. I observed, and in my interaction, the first thing that everyone asked me. Okay, is someone trying to say anything? Do you have a question? No. All right. Okay. So the first thing that everyone wanted to know from me when I was doing a case study was, do you have someone with autism at your home? And I said no. Then they asked me, do you have someone related to you who has autism? I said no. And then they went about making this assumption that probably your parents must be doctors or psychologists or special educators. And I said no. You can stop the screen share.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. I said no. So they were quite astonished by my answer. And they asked me if all the answers are no, then why are you doing this? And I was surprised. I was angry. I came from Baroda. I came from Baroda to Delhi and took so much trouble to be in a school to understand the problems. And they were asking me, why am I interested or why am I doing this? And like any college student, I was angry. And I thought to myself that is it something like someone who has someone with disability at home, only those people can work for disability? Why are they even asking me this question? And to my surprise, this did not just happen with me in Delhi. I went to Hyderabad, where they have Autism Ashram, another residential school for autism. I went there, and even there, I was asked the same question whenever I went to interact with anyone. At that point in my college, I actually did not understand the depth of this question of why was I doing this. And I had some basic answers to this question that I am doing this because I'm passionate about understanding autism. So passion was one of the things that I spoke about. Then I said I am doing this because as an architect, I feel that it's my responsibility as well to not just think about able-bodied people, people for which we are trained to design, but as an architect, I think I should also understand other people. Then I said that I'm really curious about this particular subject and I want to explore. So that is the reason why I'm doing this. And those answers, do you guys think that those answers were good? Can someone give me a yes or no? Just a yes or no. Just unmute and give me a yes or no. Anyone? Do you think that those answers were good? Just unmute and say. Just unmute. Anyone who wants to say. Okay.
Ma'am.
Those answers were good? Who's speaking? Okay.
Samat was speaking, yeah.
Yeah, someone said yes. Okay. All right. So yeah, those answers were good. Definitely good. Those answers were good for a college student, for a college project. But were those answers good for me to take up a startup, for me to start a startup? They weren't. And the journey did not stop there. For the question of searching for the why was I doing it? After my bachelor's program, I went to the fellowship. I got selected for a fellowship in Ahmedabad. I went there, and the fellowship had a similar program like the e-Yantra competition that you all are a part of, where we had something called a live action project. A live action project is something where we are subjected to on-ground social problems, We have to select a problem that we are passionate about, that we want to work on, and we go through a rigorous training of 6 months where we define the problem, where we look at the problem from different perspectives, where we get trainings and education to understand the problem better. We go to the community and so on and so forth. So it was a 6 months of entire process, like this entire competition, which was a live action project. And of course, like you all are definitely participating in teams, the live action project also had to be in teams. None of the people in my class actually were interested to explore the idea of urban inclusion. No one was interested to talk about disability. No one was interested to even know about disability. In the class of 30 people, everyone was interested in subjects like hunger. They were interested in sanitation. They were interested in education. But disability was something very far from them. And so even then I was too determined to work on this. And then I got this question again in my life. Why are you so stubborn on this? Why do you want to really do this? Why do you want to work on urban inclusion or disability? And at that point, like you all are selected in eYantra competition, it's supposed to be a reputed competition. You all are now going to be innovators, social change makers. The fellowship was also something like that. Something where I felt I am the change maker now, I'm the innovator now. And since because I'm selected in the fellowship, I felt like I want to do this because I want to bring a change in the society. And I want to do this because I don't want to get caught up in a 9 to 5 job. I want to do something which really makes a difference. I want to work on the grassroots level and I want to have real impact of real importance. And that was my answer. And so I said, that is the reason I want to do it. So do you think that this was a good answer? Can someone tell me if that was a good answer?
Ma'am, why do you hate 9 to 5 jobs?
Yeah. Why do I hate 9 to 5 job? Good question. At that point, my thinking, when I was in my fellowship, at that point, my thinking was that when I'm doing a 9 to 5 job, I'm probably not working on the ground. I'm probably not solving real problems. I'm not solving real issues. And so my thinking was that a job is not going to give me the exposure to real issues. And so I was so determined to not do it. So that was my thinking at that point. But do you think my answers were good for someone to know why I was doing it? Can anyone tell me? Just
You are passionate and definitely you gave me an answer of 9 to 5. So your answer was right, ma'am.
right. So my answer was right. My answer was good. My answer was good enough for me to survive a little bit while longer with this problem. But was my answer good enough to really survive a startup? To really go about and make the change that I have been talking about ever since? Was my answer good enough? And I'm afraid that it wasn't so. My answer wasn't good enough. And this was only when I started working on Accessible. When I started this company, when I started working in my house without any college, without any infrastructure, without any faculties, without any peers, when I started working on this problem, the problem that I've been advocating for so many years now, I started feeling that this why is not enough. And that was the point I realized, that why those teachers in those autism schools really told me and asked me and emphasized on the fact that do you have someone with disability at home? What they were actually trying to tell me, underlying beneath this question was, they were trying to understand what is my innate connect with the subject. Not because I am passionate about it, not because I want to be a change maker. And that is the day when I realized something very important, when I sat and realized something very important, that you are in this journey of this competition, and probably after this competition, you might be doing something related to it or unrelated to it. But if you've decided to solve a problem, if you've decided to start something, start a journey while solving a problem, it's so much more than your passion, what it is going to take for you to work for it. It is so much more than thinking about social impact that what is going to take you to do it. What was so important for me was to realize and find out what is that one thing, what is that deep connection, what is that one thing that I really have on a very deeper level, which makes me pursue this. And not because I wanted to see the change. And that is why the why is very important, because once you figure that why out, this why is going to save you. And when I say save you, I am saying the why is literally going to save you. Save you from what? The why is going to save you from numerous disappointments that you're going to have from your own self. The why is going to save you from all the rejections that you are going to face. The why is going to give you the motivation that it is required to get out of the bed and do something. This why will be so important that when you will be in self-doubt, when you will be thinking, you will ask this question to yourself, why at the very first place did I ever think about starting this? What am I even getting out of this? At that point of conversation, when you will get at that point of conversation with yourself, your passion won't come into picture, your zeal to do something in the society won't come into picture. What will really save you is if you found out the deeper connect of the problem that you're trying to solve and your life, something which burns inside you if that problem isn't solved. If you found that one thing, that is the only thing that is going to help. So that was the first thing that I wanted to talk about, that why is your why so important? I'll pause here. I will see if there are some questions in the chat. I can't see the chat actually.
I mean, it's an open floor. If anyone wants to ask any questions, go right ahead.
Yeah, please. So before I start, what is the second most important thing that I found? I want to pause and see if anyone wants to know anything about it, or maybe I can go forward. Okay. All right. Yeah. So that was the first thing. Now, once you've already understood your why, probably it will take you time. It has taken me a lot of time to understand why I'm doing this. Probably it will take you a lot of time. But once you've understood your why, what is the second thing which comes into picture? And the second point which I wanted to talk to you about is empathy. Now, I'm sure all of you have heard this word empathy. Probably some of you have also heard this, that how empathy is so much important while you're problem solving. Empathy is so much important while you're trying to understand a problem. So let me, can you share the screen? Yeah. So, yeah, the next slide. Yeah. So empathy is really important. And as you will progress in this journey, you will also get an idea of how to empathize with the problem, with the user, and things like that. So I'm not going there. But I'm going to talk about empathy is important, but only and only if it is done with the right perspective in mind. So now what is this right perspective? So first let me tell you what empathy is for people who don't know. By the definition of it, empathy means literally putting yourself in the shoes of the other person, trying to see the world the way they see it, trying to feel whatever they feel in the problem that you are trying to solve. So that is basically what empathy means. Now, what does it mean to have a right perspective? So let me go back to the story of the college and the thesis time. So that was the first time when I had my first encounter with a person with disability, the thesis time. And what happened at that time? So do you think it was very easy for me to convince my college faculties to give me this topic to study? Do you think it's easy for you being in college to convince anything to your teachers anyway? Do you think it's easy? It's not easy. So when I proposed this topic, I was being told from my college to select a simpler topic. Not that they were against the topic, but they wanted, for my benefit, of course, they wanted me to select a simpler topic, a topic which is doable in the span of 6 months of thesis period. So I was being very stubborn. Again, I was being very stubborn. I decided I wanted to do this, and that was the end of the story. So I was not going to change. So with stubbornness, there is also a price that you have to pay. And I had to pay a price. I was being called to the dean's office. And I was scared. Okay, someone wanting to.
I'm not a
I think you need to unmute yourself.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're audible now.
Okay, I'm not sure what all did I say. What all did you miss?
No worries. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So I was telling you that I was being stubborn with that topic and I was being called to the dean's office. And the dean asked me 3 simple questions. The first one he asked me was, do you understand the complexity of the problem that you're trying to solve? And by that time, I'd already done my secondary research. So I had read about the user with autism. I had seen movies about them. I had seen documentaries about them. A lot of content is out there. So I thought, yeah, I know what is the complexity of the problem. The second question that he asked me, do you understand the significance of the problem? I actually didn't. I thought, I don't know. How significant could this problem be? It is significant, that's why I've taken this up. But I'm not sure what to tell him. But I wanted an approval, so I said yes. Then he asked me, do you understand that in this thesis, you wouldn't just have to understand about architecture or built environment, but because of the kind of user which is there in the picture, you will also have to understand the user, their conditions, their issues, probably their psychology, probably their functioning. Are you up for this? And I said, I thought, how difficult could that be? And I said, yes, I'm up for it. And so he gave me the consent, and I went ahead for my case study, went to Delhi, the same story. Now I'm in Delhi, and I'm there in my classroom. So this is my first interaction with persons with disability, where I'm looking at autism, children with autism, as the target population I wanted to work with. So I went inside the classroom, and the facilitator told me 3 things. He said, do not say a word in the entire classroom. Do not ask any questions in the entire classroom. And observe as quietly as you can. And that was easy. So I went with my notebook. I went inside, I sat, I had a pen and paper, and I was looking at the children. So can you share the slide? So I was looking at the children, and yeah. So I was looking at the children. I was in this class. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah. And I was terrified. No, the previous one. Yeah, this one. See, yeah. So I was terrified. I was scared. I was actually overwhelmed. I had no idea what I had gotten myself into. I thought I knew autism. I thought I read enough about them. And that is where I realized the first mistake, that reading is not sufficient. The first hand interaction with the user is very much essential. Without you interacting with the user, without you interacting with the people you want to design for, you want to solve a problem for, no matter how many movies you see, no matter how many documentaries you see, it will never make up for the real experience. And so I was terrified and I was overwhelmed, to be honest. And after the class, I ran to my room, I called my grandfather and I told him, oh my God, I don't know what I just did. I don't know where I am. I think I've gotten myself in a trouble. I'm in my final year of architecture. I picked up a difficult topic. I fought for this approval. and I have no idea about these kids at all. I don't understand them. Nothing that I had read about them in the papers was what I was seeing. And when you read about persons with disabilities in papers, when you see movies about them, a lot of interpretation is not as correct as how they actually are in real life. So that was the thing that I got to learn. I read about autism, and I read about autism in a very medical point of view. Autism is a condition because of which this happens, that happens, because of the condition, they are in suffering, they are in pain, and they can't do this and they can't do that, and all of that. So this is what I actually had an idea about the condition when I saw them. And when I went in the classroom, there were children who were crying, and there were children who were banging their head on the floor, and there were children, like in the picture you can see, she was in her own world and she was doing things, and she was hurting herself, and a lot was going on in that one classroom. And to that, I thought I'd made a wrong decision. To that, my grandfather actually told me, and I think this was the most important lesson that I learned in empathy at that point. So my grandfather told me that you're only looking at autism because you're looking at it as a condition. You already understood autism as a condition of signs and symptoms. Because of the condition, all of this is happening. So he told me, try to separate the condition from the person. And it's very difficult to do it because the condition is a part of the person. So he told me, try to separate the condition from the person. And he said that till the time you will attribute all the issues that are happening to them because of their condition or due to their condition, you will never be able to solve a thing. You will never be able to understand their relation with the environment or their relation with you or their relation with anyone. And to give you an example, what did he mean when he said not to attribute the problems to the condition that they are? It is as simply as saying that she could not go to the cafe because she was on a wheelchair, or he could not board the bus because he was blind. Something like that, where you blame the condition, where the condition becomes at the forefront of all the problems that are happening. So he gave me an advice. He told me, separate the person from the condition. Go there in the class again. And he told me the same thing that those teachers told me. To sit quietly, to observe, to not ask any questions. And he told me the same thing. But another thing that he told me was, when you're observing them, when you're observing children, observe them without any judgment. Because when I was observing them, I was judging them not for anything good or bad, but I was judging them that, oh my God, they have this condition, how painful, how difficult. I was becoming sympathetic to them. Instead of solving their problem, I was feeling sorry for them. Instead of looking at what can be really done to what they are and how their life is, I started feeling sorry for them. I started feeling that what if they did not have this condition at the first place? Life was so easy. But that was not for which I was there for the thesis, right? So when you go and in this whole competition also, when you're working for persons with disability, when you're thinking about solving a problem, either in accessibility, either in education, or in any sector that you're going to choose, the first thing that you have to do is go and talk to them, meet them, talk to them, understand them. But the second thing, when you do so, do not attribute any issues that they have to the condition that they have. Do not be judgmental about that. And it's going to be difficult because sometimes what happens, persons with disabilities themselves blame a lot of the issues that they have on their condition. And that's true, the condition is disabling. The condition causes a lot of issues to them. So you're going to find this a lot. But the way to really find your connect with them, where you can connect them apart from their condition and you can have a deeper connect with your users or your target population is only when you are going to separate the condition and you're going to look at the person the way they are, in whatever environment they are, and however they are behaving, without feeling sorry for them, without feeling apologetic for them. So that is going to be the second most important thing while you're going to progress in the competition, or if you want to work forward in designing or working for persons with disabilities. Yeah, so that's the second important thing. So I'll stop again to see if anyone has any questions, or should we go ahead? Let's do a little bit of interaction. Let us talk a little bit. I've been talking a lot. So, do you have any questions? You are 95 people on the call, and none of you has a question. That's so surprising. It's okay. You can switch on your mic. We can talk a little bit. Or does anyone want to say anything? Or you all are just okay. No one wants to say anything. I am pretty good at speech giving, so you all are very happy to continuously listen to me.
Okay, I
Anyone
think
want to say anything?
Manish wants to ask something. I'll just
Yeah.
unmute you just a second.
Yeah. Okay. There's something in the chat also I can see.
Yeah, hello, ma'am.
Okay, who is speaking? Yeah, Manish.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. Ma'am, you are just talking about assistive technologies right now, right?
No, I am not talking about any technology right now. I'm talking about how can you really understand the people for which you are.
Yeah, I got your point. You are talking about autism. Okay. So you went to the school, you saw the students, then you got your problem statement and your reaction because you had taken some action and then you felt that I should have taken this action way before taking your decisions, right?
Right.
But right now with me, the problem is little bit different.
Okay.
I'm yeah, a IT guy, okay, and
Okay.
I'm very good with the programming,
Okay.
okay. So right now there is QGIS. So I'm thinking to compete with QGIS using some technologies, okay.
Okay.
It can be any, it can be .NET, it can be PHP. Then again, I want to integrate some kind of IoT devices in it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So, and basically, I am pursuing law. Okay.
Okay.
So, something which should be helpful to the society for policing, then how law plays into picture, and how geographically QGIS will help you understanding your problems. Okay. So,
Okay.
is this a good idea? It will be related to policing. Okay. We will be meeting some police department. We will be taking their permission. Okay. And we'll be making some project on it.
Okay.
So, that's what is going into my mind currently.
Okay. All right. I am not so much well aware of a lot of things that you spoke about. I'm not from a tech background, so I don't understand a lot of things. But what I understood was you want to create something which can help in policing. That is the gist of it, is what I got, right? Am I
Right.
right? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is your question?
My question is, see, I'm good in law,
Okay.
so I want to make some solutions using law. And
Using law.
since this uh, competition with is IoT plus QGIS and your expertise, and my expertise is law.
Okay. Right. So in the purview of this competition, where the theme of this competition is, it's talking about urban inclusivity. So, do you understand the theme of the competition? Are you with me when I say that there is a theme of the competition and they want you to specifically find solution in one particular domain of all the hundreds and thousands of problems in the world? Do you understand that? Are you with me on that?
So definitely you go to lawyers for it, ma'am.
You
whenever
go to
you have a
lawyers.
problem.
What do you go to lawyers for? Let's talk about that. In the domain of urban inclusivity, what do you go to lawyers for?
Yeah. So now in urban play field, whoever are there, there are many people. Okay. So everyone is having their problems. They are facing their problem, having problems in at some point of time. Okay.
Right.
So we can guide them that what is the solution, legal solution for it.
Legal solution for what problem? But
Whatever problem statement they are facing means right
in
now
which
I am thinking about
statement?
it.
That problem statement, but
So I told you it will be with respect to, it can be with respect to hospitals, it can be with respect to policing. Okay, we will be going and meeting the police people. We will be the,
right,
know what happens. People do some crime and they go to police station. Okay,
right,
and if you go to hospital, there are patients. Okay, so in patients also there are lots of people who are facing some difficulties. Okay, legal difficulties are also there. So we can
true,
have that problem solved at that time. Like
right,
insurance are there.
I think I can step
right.
in here. I mean, sir, I could answer your question as well as a
Yeah,
urban
yeah.
thinker.
Please, please.
So urban discipline is very multidisciplinary, and law happens to be an integral component of formulating urban policies and governance, in fact, as well. And quite frankly, this challenge as well, if a solution is developed which can come to influence public policy and law, then it can be steered ahead in that direction. I'm not sure if I answered your question to the best of my abilities, but I understand that you are from a law background. And the fact that is that if some technological solutions do come up, it may go a long way in influencing public policy arena as well. And again, it comes down to which geography it is in, which state it is in, which city it is in, and so on and so forth. So I think, Shivani, we can proceed ahead due to time
Yeah.
limitations as
Right.
Thank you.
well.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for your question. Uh, okay, fine. So I think there was another question that I want to quickly take up before I close and move on to the next one. Was I can't see it, but something related to
Kind
autobiography.
of difference do you notice between documentary and real life representation of autism is what the Aniket Jain is asking.
Very, very good question. Very good question, I would say. So when I saw the documentaries, number one, very nice documentaries were there which represented Indian context, the context in which, so autism is a spectrum condition. The condition is same, be it in India, be it in abroad, be it anywhere in the world. The condition medically is going to be the same. But the way autism has been dealt with in other countries, apart from India, where I had seen the documentaries, autism has been understood very well way before in time than that is in India. The resources that were available there and the way children were able to do their work and their functioning level was far more improved in the documentaries that I saw. So I definitely got to understand the problem that these are the issues that someone with autism might have. But when I saw them actually in the environment where the documentary was shot, the intensity in which the person was being shown was not at all the intensity that I actually witnessed in the school when I was there. And that was largely because a lot of these children did not come in the early intervention program. That means their diagnosis did not even happen while they were 4, 5, 6 years of age. So diagnosis happened late, their training happened late, parents don't have money for training, and a lot of issues. So these are all like problem statements for you, but education is a problem, training is a problem, vocational training is a problem, money is a problem, space is a problem. So many problems are there, due to which the context in which I saw these children and the buildings in which I saw them sitting and learning, it really overwhelmed me. And if I would have just seen the documentaries, I would have been completely disconnected to the context in which I'm designing. So the context plays a very important role. The context, the city, the culture in which you are trying to see the problem. The same thing, when I went to Hyderabad and when I did the case study, the context was completely different. It was a residential school that was a day school. They had a huge property. They had all the children who were paying huge amount of fees, but not in the day school. So the property was small, the classrooms were small, the resources were limited. and there the resources were ample. So every time that you're going to see a problem, you will have to look at the problem from so many different kinds of contexts. You will have to see in this particular region, in this particular city, and which is my next point that I'm going to talk about. How is the problem really changing? What are the dynamics that are there in Delhi as compared to that in Hyderabad? That and that is how your problem is so dynamic across. And so you can never rely on movies and documentaries, especially not movies. Like Indian cinema representation of disability, I cannot even start explaining how misleading that entire representation is. And so if you've seen a couple of movies and you think you understand what visual impairment is, you understand what mobility issues are, you understand what wheelchair users go through, only through the Bollywood movies or the content that you've seen, or if you understand the neurological problems because of these TV series that you've seen, that is not going to be the absolute understanding of the problem. And more importantly, and most importantly, to be able to solve the problem and really have the courage to go about solving a problem, because you're also in college. I assume you're also will be having your own curriculum, you will also have your own exams, some of you at least will have that. So you'll have to find that zeal to solve the problem, and you will never get it if you will only see the documentaries. You will never find the connect with the person if you would never meet them. So I think documentaries are good for a secondary study, but if you really want to understand the problem better, you will have to meet your target population. Yes. So coming to the third point, which I think from the question that Mr. Manish asked, and I think Brajesh answered, one of the things that we gathered from the third point was context and cities. And I think Brajesh, you said that in various cities, things will change, the laws will change, the kind of implementation happening in the cities will change. So why is this city so important? The city of implementation. Why is it so important? So no matter what your why is, no matter what your what is, no matter what your strategies of implementations are, what is the city of implementation? That is going to be another very crucial element that I want to talk to you about. Everything else is also important, but I specifically chose to talk about this. So can you please share the screen? And so I have a very good correlation to make to next point. So I have a very good correlation to make, and I would say that this journey for you, not just this competition, but whatever you want to do, maybe pursue entrepreneurship forward. This journey is going to be like snakes and ladders. And can you change the slide? So I'm sure all of you must have played snakes and ladders, Saap Seedhi, you call it in Hindi, in your childhood. And for those of you who haven't played it, let me just explain a little bit. And what a snake's ladder is a board game, is an indoor board game where you have a couple of snakes, a couple of ladders. If you come to the ladder takes you up. If you come to the snake takes you down. That's a very simple game. And you have one very clear agenda. You start from 1 and you have to reach 200 as fast as possible. So that's the game about. And that's very similar to how the startup journey is going to be like. And there's no rocket science in decoding that the snakes are going to be the obstacles in the journey and the ladders are going to be opportunities. So there's no rocket science in decoding that. But what we can really learn from this game and apply it in our journey of problem solving, that is, when you're playing snakes and ladders, you are actually viewing the board from a bird's eye view. That means you are actually looking at the board. You can see where all the snakes are. You can see where all the ladders are. You can see the starting point. You can see the ending point. You have a clear idea of the pitch on which you're playing. But that is something what really does not happen in a startup. So in a startup, you know there will be obstacles, you know there will be ladders, but you don't really have a clear idea of what this entire arena is going to be like. So why is knowing this arena so important? Why looking at your problem as intensively as possible and as involved as possible is important as it is important to zoom out and see your problem from a bird's eye view. Why is that so important? So anyone has an idea of why is that so important? Why is it easy to see a problem if you are seeing from a bird's eye view? Can someone tell me? Okay, no one knows. Okay, so I'll tell you that. So I'll tell you, this is where the larger context come into picture. So when you talk about you and your expertise, in your knowledge, in your domain, and the problem, you're only talking about a very limited area of understanding. And that's what happened with me in college. So I was talking about me, my expertise, my idea, my user. I've understood the user well. All of it is happening. Now I can go about starter. What I was missing is the larger context of the entire problem. And why this larger context is so important, I'll tell you a story for that. So a story after I established accessible. What happened? So the first intervention that we did, so I went about, can you keep on sharing the screen? Yeah, just the next slide. Yeah. So I'll tell you, yeah. So I was talking to you about the first intervention that we planned, and there was a puja at my home. And the puja, so when I came back to Indore, so I haven't lived in Indore so much, but my city of intervention is Indore. So I'll also tell you how much impact does it make that when you haven't really interacted with the city so much and your startup is actually starting up in a city such as this. So we had a puja in Indore, and for that puja, we wanted to find a temple which is accessible because my grandfather was a wheelchair user. And so I went about in the city. I started finding Jain temples which were accessible, and there was no temple in the city that I could find actually was accessible. Mostly all the temples has more than 4 or 5 steps to enter, and so that was getting very difficult. So then there was one temple which was near to our house and our family that we finalized on. Can you change the slide? Yeah, there was one temple and it had 3 steps. So I thought it won't be difficult to have an intervention here, to have my pilot here. And so I went and spoke to the trustees of the temple and I told them that, see, this is the issue, that there is a puja and it's a very important puja. And my grandfather is a wheelchair user. Your temple doesn't have a ramp. Can you support me, or can we do something so that a ramp comes up, or can we build a ramp together, or can anything be done? So that was my humble request to the trustee. And he said that we don't really need a ramp because where are these people? Where are these people who are actually coming and using the temple who are on wheelchair? So they said we don't really need a ramp. And I told him the situation, and I said that I need a ramp and I have to have the ramp. And then he said, okay, fine. If you want the ramp, then you get the ramp. So I said, okay, fine. Give me the permission. I'll get the ramp. I'll build the ramp, and I will do whatever is needed for the ramp to be there. He said, okay, but just keep in mind that the ramp should not decrease the aesthetic value of the temple. Now that kind of thing coming from a trustee, it felt like someone who is an advocate of religion and someone understands religion so well. He's telling me that ramp which is there to facilitate should be placed in such a way, or should be designed in such a way that it should not decrease the aesthetic value of the temple. I said, okay. Then he said, the ramp should also be placed in such a way that it should not disturb any other person who is visiting the temple. I said, okay. And then he said that ramp should definitely be removable. I said, okay. So we started constructing a ramp at this temple, and we did some trial and errors for us to come up with a prototype of the ramp. And can you change the slide? Yeah. And so we did some trial and errors. We came up with different kinds of designs, and because they wanted the ramp to be removable, we wanted to make it portable. So we tried a lot of permutations and combinations, and we came up with one kind of a prototype, and that really worked. So I was really happy that day. I was really happy that I was able to install a ramp. I was able to get my grandfather in the temple. The puja was so important. All of it was very good. And to my surprise, not just my grandfather used the ramp, but most people who came to the temple that day, most of them used the ramp. A lot of children used the ramp. And there is a dharamshala in the temple, so people came with a lot of luggage, and all of those people also used the ramp. So the impact of one ramp was huge. Everyone started using the ramp, and it was not just about one person. It was not just about doing it for one person who needs it. And I was so happy. And I was happy that I made my point, I proved my point. And the very next day, I get a call from the temple after the puja. The next day, I get a call from the temple, and they tell me, please come back and remove the ramp. And I was surprised. And I thought, maybe let me just go and talk to them and let me just understand what is the problem. We all of us saw that the ramp was so usable to everyone. Why are they asking me to remove it? So I went in the temple, and you won't believe the head of the trustee was sitting there. The head of the trustee was paralyzed for so many years. The head of the trustee was himself a wheelchair user for so many years. And that is the guy who is telling me that we don't need a ramp. And I was shocked. And I had no idea how to really get out of this situation, how to really convince him, because he himself was the person who needed the ramp. So he told me that once in a while, someone comes in the temple who needs a wheelchair. So for once in a while, we can always lift them up and place them in the temple. So we don't need to really have the ramp. And I told them that that's not a very dignified way to have access to a place, especially a temple. That's not a dignified way for you to every time lift up. And then they said that that's not our concern, because we feel that whoever will come on the wheelchair, definitely they are not going to come alone. So another assumption, another thing that we've already assumed, that these people are so dependent that they're not going to come alone. That was another assumption. Other assumption was that they don't really come here. Once or twice in a year, someone will come. So that was another assumption. And so he said that we can always lift them up and we can keep them. And I had a bit of a discussion with him. And I told him, and this is a very fundamental issue, which is that people don't come to places because places are not accessible. At the same time, places are not getting themselves accessible because they think people don't come. So this is like anywhere you go, you're going to find a fault. You're going to go to the users, you're going to go to your target population, you're going to tell them, please start going, start claiming these public spaces, start going and interacting and going to cafes, go to restaurants, go. But how will they go? The transportation is not accessible, the places are not accessible. How will they really go? That is the first challenge. And if I go, and when I went, and after this entire chapter happened with me, I just didn't go to this temple, but I went to several other temples. And I spoke to them because I already had a prototype. I spoke to them. I told them, let me just install it and just see how much of a change will that bring to the experience of people who are going to come in the temples. But no one wanted a ramp. So at one point, no one wants to make the place accessible, and the reason is, where are these people? So I've studied in Gujarat, then I've worked in different cities like Chennai and Bangalore, and also been in Gujarat for really long. Then I come back to Indore, and then I think, and I have really underestimated, actually overestimated. I've really overestimated the kind of awareness level that my city might have for this particular problem. And so I thought it would be difficult, but it might not be so difficult for me to really convince people to really have accessible spaces or environment. But that is the reason why the city of intervention is going to be another most important thing in your decision of your startup. Yeah. So that was another thing. And another very interesting thing from this experience I want to say that like snakes and ladders, I think all of you would have this rule that six is only when you get the six, that is the only time you will be able to start. And from there we learn a very important lesson of entry point in startup. So entry point is the point from which you will get, yeah, it's the part of the same point. You can be back. Yeah, yeah. I just remembered. Yeah, I just remembered that entry point is also very important. So six to start. So the only difference between the game of snakes and ladder and the startup is that you just have the dice as one of your options to get a six. So you can wait, and the dice is the only medium that can give you a six. But in a startup, you have to constantly, if one entry point doesn't work, you have to constantly try to approach the same problem from different entry points, approaching different kinds of stakeholders. It's not probably thinking about trying to do a pilot in a different city, see the impact, and come back to the home city. So this is something that I've recently realized that the entry point is not fixed. So if you will come up with a solution, and when you go and when you will go about deciding the how of the startup, how are we going to implement it? You probably will have one strategy, one entry point to implement it, but it might or might not work depending on the stakeholders and city of intervention. So as quickly as possible, it is very important to shift the entry points as quickly as possible. And that is the way you can be still keeping your motivations up being in a startup. Yeah. So I think that was all the thing that I wanted to speak about in this talk. I just want to close now, and I want to close with this one last thing. Just please keep the slides on. Yeah. So I want to close with the last thing, and that is don't take any opportunities lightly. And when I say this with a lot of seriousness because I will talk to you about a competition that I got myself and Accessible enrolled in right just after we became registered as a company. So NIUA, which is National Institute of Urban Affairs, and United Nations in India, they came up with this competition called Smart City Innovation Challenge. Similar to something like eYantra, Smart City Innovation Challenge was looking at solutions which were focused on urban inclusivity. How can we make cities better for all? How can we look at the question of inclusion? How can we look at the question of disability, gender, people who are marginalized from the cities for so long? And how can we look at innovations and come up with ideas and do some work? So that was entirely what the challenge was. And it is similar to what eYantra is also doing this time in the challenge. And so now that you are in this competition, all of you are selected. I also applied for the Smart Cities Innovation Challenge. When I applied for it, I felt like, okay, I'm just starting up. Okay, I'm just starting up, and probably it's not the best time for me to enter into a competition. And I also thought that while I was applying, because the competition was open, I could see more than 100 entries already there in the ideation challenge. So there were three categories, and I was a part of ideation, and 100 people were already there. And all of these people were coming from well-established disability organizations in India. A lot of well-established disability organizations were a part of the ideation category of the competition. And so when I saw all of that, I was like, okay, there's no chance. I should probably work on establishing my startup, probably work on that, but not take part in any competition. But I did the application anyways. I worked for it, like you all would have worked for the eYantra application process, and you got here in this competition. I also got in the competition. And there were several rounds of evaluation, and we do not have like in that competition, we did not have like a process that you will go through in eYantra, where you will be exposed to modules and you will be given training and things like that. It was all to be done by self and then to present. So that was the kind of competition. But being in that competition and getting the exposure to that competition was so fundamental in Accessible's journey, in my journey, in my family's journey, in our motivation to move forward as a startup together. It was so fundamental. And so when I applied to the competition, I got selected for the first round, then the second round, and it went on. And then we finally won the third prize in the ideation category. And with us, there was Ola Mobility Institute, who won the second prize, and they were also pitching an idea, and the competition was real, and we won it, and we got an exposure to such amazing people who are working in the field. We got we got a chance to interact with them. We got training, a little bit of training from them, and all of this was because I applied to a competition and because I did not take that opportunity lightly. And so, my last message to all of you would be that you might not be so much passionate about the subject in which you applied to in the competition. You might not understand urban inclusivity or persons with disability in as detail as someone like me, but you are now here in this competition. Go through the journey, go through the process that is designed for you, go through this entire process of trying to understand what is it that you can really do while you are trying to solve a problem. At least learn those steps, and this will be definitely a worth it experience for you in your life. Uh, uh, and the competition was very much rewarding for me, and this competition will be for you. So don't take it lightly. And I hope that all of that I have spoken about helped you in some way or the other. But I'm very thankful for the patient listeners. And yeah, that's it. I think I spoke a lot. So I'm going to stop. Thank you so much. And if anyone has any parting questions, parting thoughts, anything that they want to talk about, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Perhaps this was an unscheduled interruption, but just I had not intended to speak today. Shivani, my name is Kavi Arya. I'm the principal investigator of eYantra. I think you more than surpassed the expectation of what this talk was meant to achieve, right? And thanks for being so candid about your own journey and for giving some very, very important insights. And I think those insights are much more important than all the technology and stuff like that, which is also there on the menu. Especially things like don't bring your own biases, bring your empathy, bring your openness, and just listen and find out what the problem is rather than what you believe it should be, right? And Manish ji, I might just kind of reinforce what Shivani had implied in the sense that okay, these technologies and all that are in place and they are useful and they are relevant and so on, but it would be more appropriate to first just look at the problems and try and find a problem that kind of resonates with you, to which you have empathy. टेक्नोलॉजी सब बाकी में बाद में आ जाएगा, काम का है, शायद काम का ना भी हो, right? Because typically what happens with engineers is someone with a screwdriver in his hand, everything is a screw, right? And we engineers tend to be very narrow-minded. We tend to be very kind of macho and arrogant about our place in the world, believing that our knowledge is going to solve everything. No, I feel that the environment needs to be given an opportunity to talk to us and tell us what the real problems are before we sit down and figure out how to solve it. Anyway, that's my small bit of reinforcement which I wanted to do today. I couldn't help myself, and Shivani will have another opportunity to speak at a later date. I told Burgess that I'm not in a position today to kind of speak to anybody, but I enjoyed your talk. This is to let you know that. And I think the audience had the privilege of a very interesting exposition to how to go about uh, innovation, what kind of attitude and stomach one needs to have, how not to give up, the value of persistence, the value of not losing any small opportunity, because you should be open-minded and totally flexible in trying to find your way ahead in exploring problems and things like that. So that's all I should say. Thank you very much. Burgess, I'll hand the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for inviting me. That is the first thing. And I could not interact with a lot of students or a lot of people. I don't know if they're students also. A lot of people who are in the session. So I hope that it helped. And yeah, that's what I want to say.
Your
I think
e-Yantra
we
has
have one more
huge
question
power.
from Ganeth's side. Yeah. Ganeth? Hello?
Okay, someone's just trying to speak, I guess.
I think he is not available at the moment. But once again, Shivani, thank you so much for your time. This has been an incredible talk. And I hope the participants were, first of all, able to relate with not the solution, but rather the process and appreciating the process and the journey of how you start to solve a problem altogether. We may have a lot of ideas in our mind already and a lot of presumptions about how things should be, but at the end of the day, they are only our presumptions, right? So you have to go a step beyond. You have to go out there. You have to go talk to people and see what solutions you can possibly come up with only after you interact with the user groups that you're identifying, the problems to solve with. And again, always remember that this challenge is a challenge in which we are solving with and not for. All right. So we have content lined up for you, which we will be releasing today, including the Breaking Barriers MOOCs. The MOOCs will help you break the perceptual barriers, the social barriers, and will most importantly guide you on your journey of learning. All right. So those MOOCs will be released today along with an list of problem statements for you to select from as well. And your solutions need not be restricted to these problem statements lists. They are purely just to guide you on what are some of the key areas in which you can intervene. Whatever solution you want to come up with is purely on your bit, but these will at least help you guide and point out the directions in which you can go basically. So both these things will be released today itself, and we wish you the best of luck and take care. And our next talk will happen again. We will keep you updated about it on the Discuss forum and otherwise. Thank you all for tuning in. All the best. Take care.
Yeah, and just one thing I want to say, because you said you are going to release the problem statement today. And we started the entire talk with the problem statement. So I want to end it with the problem statement now, that when you see a list of problem statements, do not select a problem statement because you already have a solution for it. Because you think it's going to work, because you think it's easy, because it might work for the competition and you might win the competition. But what is more important is that are you able to carry it forward? And if you've chosen entrepreneurship as your way forward, can you carry it forward? Is it something so compelling that you want to take it forward? Because if you want to, this platform will really help you take it forward. They will, after the competition, also help you develop it. They will help you in all sorts of ways that is required for you to convert it into a full idea, a full workable idea. So make sure that this is the kind of support that you're getting in the competition. So while you're selecting your problem statement, just don't select anything. Select something you want to work for later on also, and take it seriously. And never forget that your why is still going to be the most important, no matter what you choose. Okay, so thank you so much. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye all.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in the website, I have seen that students have to select the one of the problem given in the list of problem statements. What if
No,
we have a separate problem
exactly.
statement of